Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Yasmin idam sada sadatmatya vibhati.
Yasmin idam sat asat atmataya vibhati.
Maya viveka vidoti srijva hi buddhihi.
Maya viveka vidhuti satra jiva ahi buddhi.
Tam nityamukta parishuddha vishuddha tattvam.
Tam nityamukta parishuddha vishuddha tattvam.
Pratyuddha karma kalila prakritim prapatye.
Pratyud karma kalil prakritim prapadye.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests Himself as one with the cause and effect within this body, but one who has transcended the illusory energy by deliberate consideration, which clears the misconception of a snake for a rope, can understand that the Paramatma is eternally transcendental to the material creation and is situated in pure internal energy. Thus, the Lord is transcendental to all material contamination. Unto Him only must one surrender. This verse is specifically stated to defy the Mayavad conclusion of oneness without differentiation between the individual soul and the supersoul. The Mayavad conclusion is that the living entity and the supersoul are one. There is no difference. The Mayavadis proclaim that there is no separate existence outside the impersonal Brahman, and that the feeling of separation is Maya, or an illusion, by which one considers a rope to be a snake. The rope and the snake argument is generally offered by the Mayavadi philosophers. Therefore, these words, which represent Vivartavad, are specifically mentioned here. Actually, the Paramatma, the Supersoul, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and He is eternally liberated. So we are thinking, there is only one soul, there's one Brahman, and that we are that big Brahman. But the correct understanding is that there is Paramatma and Atma. We both are Brahman, yes, but we are not the Supreme Brahman. We are Brahman, but the Paramatma, He is Supreme Brahman. We are Jivatma, He is Paramatma. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is living within this body along with the individual soul, and this is confirmed in the Vedas. They are likened to two friends sitting on the same tree. So, all the Vedas, they say that there are two souls in the body. One is the individual soul, the Jivatma, and the other is the Paramatma. Yet the Paramatma is above the illusory energy. The illusory energy is called Bahiranga Shakti, or external energy, and the living entity is called Tatashta Shakti, or marginal potency. So the material energy, she's called Bahiranga, right? Because she's separated. She's external. Bahir, external. And the living entity, Tatashta, marginal. We are at the margin of spiritual or material energy. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the material energy, represented as earth, water, air, fire, sky, etc., and the spiritual energy, the living entity, are both energies of the Supreme Lord. Even though the energies and the energetic are identical, the living entity, individual soul, being prone to be influenced by the external energy, considers the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be one with Himself. So we are the energy of God. The Jivatmas, we are the energy of God, this universal energy, the universal elements. This is all energy of God. God, we say, is omnipotent, so He has these energies. And we right now, we are under this influence of material energy. And under this influence, we are thinking that, oh, I'm controller, I'm enjoyer. We have forgotten our relationship with Krishna, that we are eternal loving. We have an eternal loving relationship with Krishna. We completely forgotten that. The word prapadya is also significant in this verse, for it refers to the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, 1866. Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam raja. In another place, the Lord says, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Bhagavad Gita 7:19. This prapadye or sharanam raj refers to the individual's surrender to the Supersoul. So when Krishna is saying, surrender unto me, sarvadaram pratyagya mam ekam sharanam raja. Come in my sharan, meri sharan mein aaja. So means there are two, no? We are separate than him. That's why he's saying surrender to me. Otherwise, why would he say? Then he'll say, I'm surrendering to myself if we are all one. So we are not one. We are separated, parts and parcels. The individual soul, when surrendered, can understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although situated within the heart of the individual soul, is superior to the individual soul. So this we have to understand, that we are not God. God is superior than us. We can never become God. We only have to realize our relationship with God. We have an eternal, loving relationship with Him. The Lord is always transcendental to the material manifestation, even though it appears that the Lord and the material manifestation are one and the same. According to the Vaishnava philosophy, He is one and different simultaneously. So one and different, the sun and sunshine. Sunshine is the energy of the sun. So when we see the sunshine in the room, we say, oh, the sun is in the room. So it's one. And different how? The heat and light in the sunshine is completely different than the heat and light of the sun itself. So like this, one and different. This is how we are one and different with Krishna. The material energy is one and different than Krishna because she's Krishna's energy also. The material energy is a manifestation of his external potency. And since the potency is identical with the potent, it appears that the Lord and individual soul are one. But actually, the individual soul is under the influence of material energy, and the Lord is always transcendental to it. So we are under Maya, under this illusion, under the control of the three modes of material nature. But Krishna never comes under the control of Maya. Krishna never comes under the control of modes of nature. He's always transcendental. That's the difference between Krishna and us. We have a tendency to be covered by Maya, but Krishna never. Unless the Lord is superior to the individual soul, there is no question of prapadya or surrender unto Him. That's why Krishna is saying, you surrender unto me. He's superior than us. That's why he's saying, no? Otherwise, why would he say that? Isn't it? This word prapadya refers to the process of devotional service. Simply by non-devotional speculation on the rope and the snake, one cannot approach the absolute truth. Therefore, devotional service is stressed as more important than deliberation or mental speculation to understand the absolute truth. If we at all want to understand the absolute truth, then we hear about Him. Hear about the absolute truth from the scriptures. Chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Krishna says, Bhakti Mam Abhijanati. He says in Bhagavad Gita, I can be known only by devotional service. If we say, no, I don't want to hear from the authorities, I'm just going to simply use my imagination and make up something and listen to some philosophy which is also coming from somebody's mind or imagination, we will never be able to find the absolute truth. But that's his condition. You want to know me, you have to surrender to me. This is Krishna's words. And devotional service begins by hearing and chanting. So the more we hear, the more we chant, the more we will be able to understand Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So the internal energy, which is the superior energy, is known as, is it Parashakti or Antaranga Shakti?
Yes, that's right. Antaranga Shakti, internal energy, Parashakti, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yatpad pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya
यथा पदा पंकजा
यद्पादपङ्कजा पलाशविलास भक्तया
karmashayam gratitam udgrahati santaha.
कर्माशयं
आशयं ग्रथीतम् उद्ग्रथन्यन्ति सन्त
Tadvanarikta matayo yatayo piruddha
तद्नृत्य अपि रुद्धो
sroto ganastam maranam bhajava sudevam.
रोतो गणातम् अर्णं भजवा सुदेवम्.
The devotees who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord can very easily overcome hard-knotted desires for fruitive activities. Because this is very difficult, the non-devotees, the jnanis and yogis, although trying to stop the waves of sense gratification, cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So here, Sanat Kumar is very clearly telling, he's giving very clear instructions to Pṛthu Mahārāja and, of course, to us. He's saying that you engage in bhakti. You do bhakti. Bhakti is only for Krishna. He's saying engage in service of the lotus feet of the Lord. The Krishna, he is a person. That's why he has lotus feet and he has toes, right? A person has these bodily features. The only thing we have to understand that Krishna's form is Satchid Ananda Vigraha, not material. And he's saying that do devotional service unto Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. There are three kinds of transcendentalists trying to overcome the influence of the modes of material nature, the jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas. All of them attempt to overcome the influence of the senses, which is compared to the incessant waves of a river. The waves of a river flow incessantly, and it is very difficult to stop them. Similarly, the waves of desire for material enjoyment are so strong that they cannot be stopped by any process other than bhakti yoga. So, different people apply different paths to get liberation, jnani, yogi, and bhakti. Overcome influence of material nature means get out of this ropes, the gunas, the sattva gun, tamogun, rajogun. And it is said that the material desires and our heart are like the waves of a river. We cannot stop. There's so many. The river just flows and flows and flows, no? So this is how our material desires are. Now, how can we actually stop this? It's only by bhakti. There's no other way. It cannot be stopped by any process other than bhakti. Only bhakti can stop this flow of material desire. So only bhakti can give us this real liberation that we are hankering for, to really be situated in our original position. The bhaktas, by their transcendental devotional service unto the lotus feet of the Lord, become so overwhelmed with transcendental bliss that automatically their desires for material enjoyment stop. So because the bhakta, he's so happy in engaging in bhakti, he's experiencing the highest bliss. We are pleasure seeking. We souls, Anandamaya Bhyasat, we seek pleasure. Wherever we find greater pleasure, we will go there. We are going to go there. So the bhakta, he is feeling so much pleasure in devotional service, he does not care for the pleasure of the material world because he's experiencing a higher taste. When we get used to some refined taste, we don't want the lower taste. Like you get used to like pure ghee mithai and all that, then you don't want the imitation mithai. So it's similarly like that. The bhaktas are feeling so much pleasure, so much emotion is there, bhav is there, prema is there. They don't want to concern themselves with the material world. The jnanis and yogis who are not attached to the lotus feet of the Lord simply struggle against the waves of desire. So automatically the material desires stop for the bhakta, because his desire now is there to please the Lord, to be with the Lord, engage in this relationship with the Lord. So automatically he's not concerned with material desire. But when we are artificially trying to control the material desire, it becomes very difficult because the desires are crazy. We try to stop one, there are another 100 waiting. We fulfill one, there are another 1,000 waiting. So they are described in this verse as Rikta Matya, which means devoid of devotional service. In other words, the Jnanis and Yogis, although trying to be free from the desires of material activities, actually become more and more entangled in false philosophical speculation or strenuous attempts to stop the activities of the senses. As stated previously in Bhagavatam 1-7, Vasudeve Bhagavate Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam cha Yad Ahaitukam. Here also the same point is stressed. Bhaja Vasudevam indicates that one who is engaged in the loving service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, can very easily stop the waves of desires. So Bhaja Vasudevam, engage in bhakti, worship Lord Krishna. And whoever is engaging in bhakti, loving service is bhakti. Whoever is doing bhakti easily can give up material desires. As long as one continues to try to artificially stop the waves of desires, he will certainly be defeated. That is indicated in this verse. You know, like a naughty child is there. A child is throwing a tantrum. We may try to control the child so much. It gets very difficult. But just give the child something better to play with. He'll automatically become calm and cool. And he'll forget his tantrum. You give him something more meaningful. Similarly, our hankering actually is we are hankering for Krishna, but we have forgotten. Simply we again, to be situated in that position, again, we hear and chant. That is indicated in this verse. Desires for fruitive activities are strongly rooted, but the trees of desire can be uprooted completely by devotional service, because devotional service employs superior desire. One can give up inferior desires when engaged in superior desires, because we are the soul after all, So the soul knows, the soul feels happy when it's engaged in bhakti. So automatically the soul does not want to hanker for material things anymore. To try to stop desires is impossible. One has to desire the Supreme in order not to be entangled in inferior desires. So we have to desire the Supreme. We have to desire to be with Krishna, to revive our relationship with Krishna, to engage in pure devotional service to Krishna. That should be our desire, because that's the desire of the soul. Jnanis maintain a desire to become one with the Supreme, but such desire is also considered to be calm, lust. So if we think I'm going to become God or I want to become God, that's also lusty desire. Because then we want to become someone we are not. We are not God. If we were God, we wouldn't be inside this material body. We are not. Only Krishna is God. And Krishna, even when he comes to the material world, his body is never material, it's transcendental. So even after we get liberated, we are not going to become Krishna. That desire to become Krishna, that is lusty desire. We need to give it up. How? By hearing and chanting. Similarly, the yogis desire mystic power, and that is also calm. And the bhaktas, not being desirous of any sort of material enjoyment, become purified. There is no artificial attempt to stop desire. Desire becomes a source of spiritual enjoyment under the protection of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord. So the devotee is always under the shelter of Krishna. Krishna is saying, Sarva Dharmam Parityagya, surrender unto me. So the devotee is completely surrendered. He's completely surrendered to the Lord. So he's under the protection of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord. The lotus feet of the Lord are like an umbrella which is sheltering the devotee from all the threefold miseries of this material world. It is stated herein by the Kumāras that the lotus feet of Lord Krishna are the ultimate reservoir of all pleasure. One should therefore take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord instead of trying unsuccessfully to stop desires for material enjoyment. So we are looking for pleasure in the material world. But here the four Kumāras are telling us, hey, you want pleasure? Actually, pleasure is there at the lotus feet of Krishna. So look for pleasure there. And automatically our material desires will be finished. As long as one is unable to stop the desire for material enjoyment, there is no possibility of becoming liberated from the entanglement of material existence. It may be argued that the waves of a river are incessantly flowing and they cannot be stopped, but the waves of the river flow toward the sea. When the tide comes over the river, it overwhelms the flowing of the river, and the river itself becomes overflooded. Then the waves from the sea become more prominent than the waves from the river. Similarly, a devotee with intelligence plans so many things for the service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness that stagnant material desires become overflooded by the desire to serve the Lord. So as the river is coming into the sea, so here we are advised that we have so many material desires, right? But just somehow or the other have the desire to serve Krishna. And in that desire, all our material desires will go away. Just keep having desire to serve Krishna. Service to Krishna begins by hearing and chanting. As confirmed by Yamunacharya, since he has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, there is always a current of newer and newer desires flowing to serve the Lord. So much so that the stagnant desire of sex life becomes very insignificant. Yamunacharya even says that he spits on such desires. Bhagavad Gita 2.59 also confirms param drishtva nivartate. The conclusion is that by developing a loving desire for the lotus feet of the Lord, we subdue all material desires for sense gratification. So we want to stop material desires, we should increase the desire to serve Krishna. Develop a loving desire for service to Krishna. We do bhakti, automatically our material desires will go away. Just continue doing bhakti. Is that okay? Yes. Okay. So, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you for